We all know that the next major plot point for the Dream SMP is pretty much guaranteed to be Dream being broken out of prison. The question is, how will he get broken out of prison? Well, that's what I aim to answer in this video. Super quick here, consider subscribing. 156,000 people watched my latest videos and didn't subscribe, probably because I didn't yell about it for long enough, so if you do like the video, please feel free to subscribe down below. Also, before we get into the lore, there are a bunch of videos online which show ways for Dream to get out of prison, right? And they've got millions of views. Well, do I have news for you? My friend Ruby was watching a Dream stream the other day and found this clip. Let me play it for you now.
Over again, and also I'm incredibly
20.
intimidated by countdown clocks, so this is just not a good idea right now. Oh,
15. I lost count.
taking a screenshot of that for later to use out of context. That's gonna be fantastic.
Now, I don't know about you, but there's a pretty easy way out of this prison. For all of its security and lava and traps and water breathing, all Dream has to do is literally jump into lava, respawn, break this bed, and jump into lava again. Easy! He respawns at spawn, far away from the prison, and the entire server is destroyed within a matter of days because Dream, the character obviously, used his brain for a damn second. Anyway, rant over, back to how he'd get out in the lore. Dream is in prison, great, but that doesn't really encompass his situation very well, so bear with me for a minute as I give you a quick breakdown of just the important things to know about Dream in prison right now. First off, we have the most recent thing of all. Tommy, who was traumatized after he was killed and subsequently revived by Dream in prison, tried to break into the prison around a week ago. He wanted to break in to try and kill Dream, to try and rid the SMP of what he viewed as the root of all evil. He had lied to, hoodwinked, and generally just manipulated Ghostbur into sneaking him into the prison, and fumbled at the last moment when he pulled out a netherite axe, alerting Sam, the warden, to his presence, and causing Ghostbur to get trapped in the prison cell with Dream. Dream then revived Wilbur, effectively killing Ghostbur, and Sam banned Tommy from the prison for the rest of his life, singular as he only has one left, on pain of death. There's also the Ranboo Dream link, but for an elaboration on that, feel free to go up to the Ranboo Explain video in the card, because that's too big of a topic to cover here. Now, on to the most interesting two aspects of Dream's incarceration, in my opinion. Technoblade and Quackity. Technoblade, as we know, owes Dream a favour, a debt that's probably his biggest weakness and was, until Wilbur was revived, Dream's biggest strength. The Blood God, being an anarchist, will naturally not bend to any external laws or rules and will also make sure to keep his word, because his moral compass is the only thing that guides him. There's also the fact that Techno is probably the least inclined to believe that Dream should be in prison out of any of the server members. After all, he did literally help Dream blow up Lamanberg, the crime which most people seem to think Dream is in prison for. Lastly, we have Quackity. Big Q is currently in the process of visiting Dream every day at the same time to try and get Dream's revive book from him, or at least the knowledge that the revive book contained, with beyond cruel methods to try and get him to talk. With Sam also being a part of Las Nevadas, Quackity is allowed into the prison with weapons and is so trusted by the prison implicitly. Now that we know that Dream has a revival book that actually works and that Tommy's death wasn't just a drugged hallucination of some sort, Quackity will almost certainly get more relentless in his pursuit of the book. He needs it for an alleged deal with Jayshlan, so even though it was theorized that one of his reasons for wanting the book was to revive Wilbur, he'll still be after it for a reason other than personal power. Also, before we break down how each person could theoretically break Dream out, I want to mention that I read a comment on my community post the other day which suggested the possibility of Sam himself letting Dream out. Now, it seems far-fetched at first, but there are two ways I see this playing out. One, Sam being shaken up and generally on edge thanks to Tommy's break-in attempt doesn't follow strict enough protocol when checking the next prisoner and gives Dream an opportunity to break out. Or two, Sam is overcome with guilt, taking Tommy's words to heart, and begins to believe that it's solely his fault that Ghostbur was killed, and in his shame and grief, lets Dream out on the condition that Ghostbur is revived. Which may seem like a stretch, but as the comment said, Wilbur, who's the writer for the SMP again, always did have a penchant for plot twists. The person I see as most likely to break Dream out at this point is actually Ranboo. There are a lot of connections Dream has to this character, including the obvious voice in his head thing, which in some capacity signifies there is a lot more to these two than we can see happening on screen. Ranboo, while in his Enderwalk state, seems to share the same ideals and goals that Dream has, and it's also implied that he's helped Dream on multiple occasions. He helped blow up the community house, bombing Pandora's vault and feeding Dream information during his stay in New Lamanberg about both his and Techno's planned execution, all things that lead me to believe that he will most likely be the one to break Dream out of prison in the end. The Ranboo situation gets just a tad more complicated, however, when you consider that Ranboo, or at least Ranboo when he's in his right mind, is either actively avoiding the prison and any interaction with Dream, or begging to be locked up in the prison similarly to Dream. Why, you ask? Because he knows. He knows what he's done, the horrible crimes he's committed time and time again while Enderwalking, and Ranboo doesn't want to be responsible for any more pain and suffering than he already is. There was one very interesting tidbit we got from a lore stream a while ago, and this page of a book came up. In it, Enderwalking Ranboo, I'll call him Enderboo, answered a question in a book from normal Ranboo. In it, Enderboo describes himself as a mediator, someone who has the sole purpose of preventing conflict. It's arguable that with Dream in prison, conflict will only increase in the long run. Now, again, this is a bit of a stretch, so let me explain. Dream is going to get out of prison, one way or the other, and that way out will probably involve conflict. What he does after getting out is irrelevant, it's going to happen anyway. Enderboo might think, however, that since Dream is going to be broken out of prison anyway, that them breaking him out and controlling the conflict that might arise from the matter because they are the ones breaking him out would be the best course of action to minimize conflict. That's my theory on how that might play out, although motivations are shaky at best in that theory and should be taken with a grain of salt. Let's look at some more strongly founded motivations then, and move on to a similarly deep-voiced candidate for the role of Dream's hero, Technoblade. Techno's motivations to break Dream out are pretty clear. He owes Dream a favor, and being an anarchist, he follows his own rules. The clincher here is that although a lot of people see anarchists as having no rules and simply doing as they please, most, if not all, actual anarchists are bound by a code that they set themselves. It's the external imposition of rules that they despise, and thus it only makes sense that Techno, having given his word to Dream that a favor would be repaid in the future, would stick to that one set of self-imposed rules, his word, and agree to break Dream out of prison if asked to do so. Techno respects no authority and thus wouldn't have qualms about breaking into the prison like others, who are more emotionally attached to and invested in both the prison and Sam's rules and health. Besides, in Techno's eyes, Dream has done nothing that's inherently evil, nothing that Techno wouldn't have done himself, probably. It's very interesting to note that he was conspicuously absent at the infamous confrontation of Dream by practically the entire server in Dream's lair. Techno doesn't have any moral qualms in freeing Dream. He has the motivation to do so the second he's asked to by Dream to rid himself of the favor he owes, and he is also amongst the most intelligent and smart on the server, backed up with oodles and oodles of power, including Withers, which Tommy described as the only thing on the server more powerful than TNT, and which Tommy considered powerful enough to even break into the prison in case of emergency. Neglecting that, he could probably just trick Skeppy into breaking Dream out for him. Alright, Wilbur's up next, and he's the one we've all been waiting for. Recently revived, calling Dream his hero, and with little to no moral compass to guide him, Wilbur almost certainly has big plans for the server, and will need aid with those plans. Techno having a set of rules, having friends, having emotional attachments is a second option in Wilbur's eyes, when it comes to allies at least. Dream is power-hungry, thirsty for revenge, already incredibly formidable as a fighter and strategist, and, most importantly, has an extremely loose to non-existent moral compass. He's the perfect vassal, ironic as that may be, and Wilbur has a bunch of unique coincidences and traits, let's call them that position him perfectly to get Dream out of prison. For one, while Ghostbur was alive? Or in the same realm as our SMP members, he slowly started to remember more and more of revived Wilbur's memories, and we saw the same thing slowly start to happen to revived Wilbur in the one stream he's been back for. The clincher here is that while Ghostbur only remembered good things and instinctively blocked out the bad, Revivebur will do the opposite, instinctively blocking out the good and remembering the bad. We'll circle back to this in a second, but there's another point I want to bring up here. Wilbur was revived inside the prison, and there's a pretty high chance that in the process of being revived, he got a look inside the prison while his soul was being transported from limbo to the real world. He was probably semi-conscious and able to get a good look at the inner workings of the prison. Now we come back to the previous fact, because Ghostbur's death, or revival you could say, was one of the most traumatizing experiences of his on life, and therefore it only makes sense that Revivebur would remember the prison trip in that much more visceral detail, remembering every single door that clanged behind him, each slam shut, another twisted part of Ghostbur's death knell. With that knowledge and insight into the workings of the prison, the likes of which is only known to Sam, its constructor, and Dream, its designer, Revivebur suddenly looks incredibly ready, poised in a springboard mount, ready to, when he deems it fit, break into the prison and finally gain access to the person who's going to be the queen in his gambit. It's also kind of interesting to note here that Wilbur is going away for like a month, so if Wilbur will be the one to break Dream out of prison, it's going to take a while. And that leads us on, lastly, to Quackity. Quackity is the wild card in this story because he's the only person I've mentioned here who doesn't have a motivation to actively break Dream out of prison. Oh no, Quackity is dedicated to trying to keep Dream in prison for as long as possible, while also trying to extort from him the secrets of the Revive book, trying to, in essence, take everything that makes Dream worth keeping alive so that he can be killed with a clear conscience. He wants these books, it's theorized, for personal gain and to revive J-Schlatt, and like I said at the start, I can see that making Quackity get restless. My reason for including him here is that he could get sloppy one day, forgetting a pair of shears or some similarly inconsequential item in his rage, and thus inadvertently freeing Dream, letting loose his worst nightmare, a half-dead monster filled with rage and the lust for revenge, right behind his very own back. And that's how I think Dream might be freed from prison. Watch this video about Wilbur Soot's revival next. Subscribe!